I want to discuss something today. It's something that I don't think people are allowed to say. I don't know why they wouldn't be allowed to say it, but apparently they're not. So I was watching Iyanla Van Zant's show with my wife. I love that show. I love how Iyanla is able to read situations, how she holds people accountable, how she's honest, how she don't take no shit. She says whatever she wants. Anyways, I was watching it and I finally saw something that I knew would help me explain what I'm about to say. First, we got to talk about biological cravings or urges. As men and women, obviously, we both share certain cravings or urges: food, sex, the movement of our bowels, certain base things that we all got to do. But there are two cravings that differ based on gender, and it seems that these cravings exist to help us spread our species. All animals tend to share this trait. Men's biological craving is sex. Now, I know people are going to say, well, women crave sex too. It's not just men and that stupid shit. But I'm not talking about just wanting to orgasm. We all know that men are on a different level when it comes to the need for intercourse. I'm talking about us wanting to have intercourse with almost every woman we see. We think about it all the time, and truth be told, most of the things we do in life are done to get sex. Getting a nice job, we only do that because it'll help us get the things that women want: a nice car, nice clothes, nice house. Most of us only work for those things because we know it will attract women. Unfortunately for us, life revolves around the vaginal crevice, but that's our biological craving. It causes us to cheat and get into all kinds of trouble, and the world demonizes us for it. Are they right? Who knows? I can't really say, because if I do, it will give YouTube another excuse to censor me and remove this video, so I won't say whether it's right or not, or even suggest that we do it, but I'll just state the facts and say that men are demonized globally for irresponsibly giving in to our biological cravings. We're called dogs. We're told that we think with our genitals instead of our heads. We're called immature, juvenile, perverts, and all kinds of derogatory names. So that's us men. Now, what about women? What's their biological craving? Well, of course, women also want sex, and a small percentage of women even want it more than some men. But that's not their biological craving as a sex. Their biological craving is having babies. Women want to get pregnant and have children. Again, it's how we spread as a species. The men biologically crave the process of passing the seed on to the woman, and the woman biologically crave the growing of the seed and birthing it. But I've noticed something. While men are dogged for irresponsibly giving into their biological cravings, women are applauded and celebrated, even when they do it irresponsibly. They ignore any issues brought up by their irresponsibility because they say women are the givers of life. Well, first off, that's not true. Us men are the actual givers of life. We literally walk around with hundreds of millions of living sperm cells between our legs. We actually carry around life all day, every day in our balls, and we give that life to the woman so she can hold it, grow it, and birth it. So in actuality, we're the givers of life. Women just hold on to it for a few months. But getting back to the topic, women want babies. They want to get pregnant. And even if they're not in the ideal situation for having a child, they do it anyway. Fuck it, right? It doesn't matter how it will affect the child. And to highlight this point, I wanted to show this clip from Iyanla Fix My Life. It's not a great quality clip. It's all I could really get. So hopefully you can hear it.
How come Uncle Daddy is the only man in the picture? Where's your longest daddy? He was just a donor or what?
No, he was a social worker at the welfare office.
Okay.
But he was always trying to get to me.
Okay.
So when I decided to have a baby, I just figured up when I was ovulating. And I invited him to stop by and have a drink at the house.
All right now.
But Nancy never knew.
She didn't know.
She didn't know it. She didn't want to know. I've always let Nancy feel like Londa was her real baby.
She wasn't raised with her father?
No, none of them were.
So this is the story, right? About the woman in the clip. All of her relationships with men failed. She kept picking losers, and I gotta divert a little bit. I gotta talk about that for a second. We always talk about how women can't find a good man, but we never think that maybe the woman isn't a good woman. Normally, people look for someone who mirrors them and their values. For instance, and I'm just going to give this off a little example, a woman who loves Phil Collins and Fleetwood Mac is not going to wind up with men who love the Ghetto Boys and DMX. It's rare because those people's personalities normally aren't going to mesh. But if that woman meets men who like Pink Floyd and Rush, she'll probably find a match in that group, and that's because she shares more things with those men than the men who listen to Get At Me Dog. So think about that when you hear about a woman who keeps picking losers. It might mean that she's a loser too. She gravitates towards those types of men because she shares things with them. She keeps picking losers all the time because she might just be a loser like the men that she keeps seeking. And let me get back to the purpose of the video. I just had to say that because they're always talking about how women keep picking losers like it's just the guy that's the loser. Sometimes the woman's picking the guy that's picking a mate that she finds things in that are, remind her of herself. So more than likely she's just like him. So let me get back to it. So the woman in the clip failed at all of her relationships with the men that she picked. So she decided to start dating women. Once she got with this woman that she's with, she decided that she wanted to have a child so that they could have their own family, her and this woman. Now, this woman already had children from all the failed relationships in her past, so there was already a family. But no, she decided that she wanted to share a new child with her homosexual partner. So, and this is the part that fucking infuriates me, she found a man who had expressed an interest in her, told her he liked her. She waited until she was ovulating. Once she knew she was ovulating, she invited him over to her house under the pretenses that she was interested in him, and then had sex with him knowing that she was then going to discard the man after she got pregnant by him. This is horrific behavior because she and her homosexual partner wanted to create a scenario that pleased them. They brought a child into this world and deprived the child of knowing who they really were. Now, in the show, the child, who's now a grown woman, she expresses how much she hated not knowing who she was, not knowing who her father was, not knowing where she came from. And who knows, the father's probably out there unaware that he has a little daughter or had a little daughter. He missed out on his chance to raise his child, and the child missed out on her chance to be with and to know her father. And that's because this woman just wanted to have a baby. She had a craving she needed to satisfy, and she didn't care about who it might hurt. In the rest of the episode, you find that the daughter didn't have a good life. Because she had no man in her life, she wasn't given a blueprint on what type of guy to get with, and so she wound up with losers who physically abused her. And also, according to the daughter, this came from her mouth. I have to say that because YouTube is looking for reasons to remove this video, this message this particular video. And so I have to remind them that I'm not making this up. The woman said this in the episode. According to the daughter, because she didn't have access to her father, she didn't know where she came from, and this distressed her so much that she wound up disrespecting and alienating her own children. The children of the daughter are also in this episode, and they're talking about dysfunction in their entire family. So the homosexual mother has caused generational harm to her own family, and it's all because she had to give in to her biological craving to have a baby and to create a family. And this happens all the time. Women knowing they're not in the ideal situation to raise a child, but not caring and giving into their craving anyway. Women not being able to financially take care of a child or children, who cares? They want babies. Not being in a situation where the child will have a normal, stable father, who cares? They want babies. It doesn't matter the negative outcome that will exist for the human that they're bringing into the world. They just want to have a baby. Now, of course, women aren't wrong for wanting to have children. They've been programmed that way, and men aren't wrong for wanting sex. Even though, if we look at a woman or express a sexual attraction to women, we're still called dogs and perverts. But no, we're not wrong for wanting sex. But we are wrong for irresponsibly having sex when we know that it can negatively affect the woman that we don't intend to be with. But if that's the case, then what about women? Again, they're not wrong for wanting to have babies, but what about when they irresponsibly satisfy their craving, when they know that it can negatively affect the child that they're bringing into the world? It bothers me that we never discuss how some women use babies as accessories or dolls. They just want to have a baby so that they can show it off, dress it up, hold it, do its hair, and talk about it. So they'll shack up with some man in some cases, and like the woman in the clip that I showed, any man, just so they can have this baby. It's a human life that may be deprived of a normal existence, all because their mother wanted to satisfy a craving. Now, to be fair, it's not just women who engage in this. Men do it as well. They want their wife or girlfriend to have 5 or 10 babies or some fucking unknown, some kind of retarded number. And they do this for some unknown reason when they know they aren't financially or even emotionally in the right place for so many children. Even homosexuals do this. Homosexuals decide they want to have a baby, so they'll get impregnated by a donor, or they impregnate a donor. But what about the child? What if the child wants to know who they came from or where they came from? What things are you depriving that child of just so you can have your own baby? It's not always fair to the child, and they didn't ask to be brought into this situation. So it's not just women, but this craving tends to hit women more than it does men. And when women irresponsibly give in to their cravings, why aren't they treated like the men who irresponsibly give in to their cravings? It's a double standard, and that's not right. Now, to anyone that may have heard this from me before, I made a video before, but I had to repost it because YouTube flagged my first video and took it down. They didn't give a valid reason, they just removed the video, issued a strike, and then warned me. They said my video encouraged violence. But if you just heard everything that I've said, which is what I said in the last video, you'll see that nothing I said mentioned, glorified, or promoted any kind of violence. So that was just YouTube's way of lying. I believe they took it down because of the part where I spoke about homosexuals wanting to have babies and having them artificially despite the negative effects that it may have on the child in the future. Unfortunately, you aren't allowed to say anything negative about homosexuals on this platform unless you have a big enough following or you're making money for YouTube. But if you're like me and don't have a big following or aren't generating any revenue, YouTube will bully you and censor you because you said something that wasn't wrong, but something that hurt their feelings. So I had to repost my message, and if they take it down again, I'll just repost my message again, and when they block me, I'll sue them based on the Unruh Act. I think they forget that homosexuals aren't the only ones protected by gender. That act also applies to heterosexual people, and being banned because you stated a fact by a business that runs on opinion videos can be seen as discriminatory, especially when the business is only doing it because it hurt their feelings or didn't go along with the propaganda that they're trying to push. While this is mostly my opinion, it is rooted in and backed up by factual experiences and testimonials. And just because the people at YouTube don't like what I'm saying doesn't make it untrue. If you're going to censor me, then you'll have to censor a whole lot of other people. Nothing in this video spoke of violence, promoted violence, or glorified violence. And nothing in this video encouraged hatred. If you say that about this video, then that means that every video where conservatives demean liberals or liberals demean conservatives need to be removed. But you won't do that because you have big money makers like Fox News and The Hill on this platform. So if you pick on me over this, I'll be fighting back.